Shalom uvracha. It's Rabbi Helfgot from my basement once again. It is Thursday morning, Erev Shabbat, Parshat Reah. We're right in the middle of Sefer Dvarim as the text moves from discussing the general statements about keeping of the covenant and connecting to God and not forgetting Sinai and not forgetting their experience and going into the land, and it starts to get into the nitty-gritty of mitzvot. In this week's parasha, it talks about korbanot, it talks about the building, it talks about kashrut, and many of the laws and details that will continue. Specifically, this parsha also focuses on what's called in fancy English the centralization of the cult. Cult here just means worship of God. And the Torah here focuses very much on the idea of bamakom asher yivchar, that as opposed to the decentralization that existed in part in the Midbar, in Eretz Yisrael, the worship through korbanot would be entirely in the Beit HaMikdash, or what the Torah says, bamakom asher yivchar, the place which God will choose to make God's name known. And that is repeated over and over again. And that's the theme of centralization, which, of course, as I've spoken about from the pulpit in the past, one of the goals of centralization, of course, is to keep tabs on the worship, that it shouldn't go into all kinds of different directions. We know that when the worship of God was decentralized in Eretz Yisrael, during the time of the monarchy, unfortunately, there were all types of mistakes and all types of aberrations. That's when you start to get synchronistic religion, syncretism, where there's mixtures of the local culture and the pure monotheism of the Torah, and people start to build bamot, start to build their own altars. So one of the goals of centralization is to keep tabs, the Kohanim and those who are, so to speak, the teachers par excellence are supposed to keep tabs that the worship continues on a kind of purely monotheistic model. Second of all, as I mentioned, centralizing the worship, of course, focuses its attention on wherever it is going to be, and it focuses the idea that there's one God, not multiple gods. There's not the North God and the South God and the East God and the God of the plains and the God of the hills and the God of the sea and the coast, but rather that there's one God who is the God of Shamayim va'aretz, of heaven and earth. And what's interesting is also, in the context of this parasha, we also are introduced in this aspect of centralization is also an aspect which Rabbi Sachs, in one of his essays, points out, is the introduction of the theme of simcha in the worship. It becomes a very central theme in chapter 12, that you shall come and experience the korbanot b'simcha. Towards the end of the parsha, when we repeat over and over again the mitzvah of the Moadim, of the holidays. Here's where the Torah, so to speak, reaches its crescendo, and it talks about simcha, joy, v'samachta b'chagecha, usmachtem lifnei Hashem Elokecha, and bringing other people involved. And again, it's interesting. Instead of everybody doing their own little Shabbos for themselves and staying at home, they come together, and the coming together expresses itself not only in the theological statement that there is one God, but also the bringing together of everybody together. Make sure that when you bring everybody together, nobody's left out. Make sure that everybody is with you. V'samachta ata ubincha v'hager v'yatom v'almana asher b'kirbecha. So it's not atomistic. Everybody, so to speak, does it for themselves in their own house, but rather we come together as a people, as one people serving one God, and everybody is there. Simcha is expressed in the categories of making sure that everyone is involved. And as Rabbi Sachs notes, he tells a beautiful story from that he saw and he heard when he met the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1968. The Hasidim, I'm quoting, told me the following story. A man had written to the Rebbe in roughly these terms: I am depressed, I am lonely, I feel that life is meaningless, I try to pray, but the words do not come. I keep mitzvot, but find no peace of mind. I need the Rebbe's help. The Rebbe sent a brilliant reply without using a single word. He simply circled the first word of every sentence and sent the letter back. The word in each case was I. The word in each case was I. There are many things we can achieve in the first person singular, writes Rabbi Sachs, but one we cannot, namely simcha, because simcha is the joy we share, the joy we have only because we share. And that's part of the challenge. Freedom, affluence, and security turn a nation into a collection of individuals, each pursuing his or her own happiness, often indifferent to the fate of those who have less, the lonely, the marginal, and the excluded. When that happens, societies start to disintegrate. The only way to avoid it, said Moses, is to share your happiness with others, and in the midst of that collective national celebration, to serve God. Blessings are not measured by how much we own or earn or spend, but how much we share. Simcha is the mark of a sacred society. It is a place of collective joy. And I think this is especially challenging during this period of time when we have been experiencing so much individuality in our service of God, individuality being disconnected from others. Some are not even able to participate even in outdoor minyanim, either because they have pre-existing conditions or because they're simply afraid, they're nervous, and it's understandable. But we all have to find ways to explore and expand our simcha beyond our personal experience of Avodat Hashem, of service of God. We've done that a lot for the last few months. We have opportunities, again, to safely, for those who are comfortable with it, to visit others. We have the opportunity to call up others. We have the opportunity to share with others. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is coming, and we're going to have outdoor services, socially distanced, with masks. And we have an opportunity for those who have not been able to join again in a safe way. We have the opportunity to connect with others, to think about others. If we are shopping, to think about others when we shop. If we're doing something, to think about others. We have the opportunity to connect with the rest of the community at certain touch points during the week. We have Kabbalat Shabbat on Zoom. We have Havdalah. We have the Shabbat morning services. The Shabbat morning services in person. We have the Sunday morning in Zoom. And the Mincha Mariv that some people are continuing to hold on Zoom. We should find whatever way we can to expand our simcha, that it is collective as much as possible within the limits that we have. We've done a lot of individuality the last few months. We got to push back where we can, what we can, to connect ourselves to the collective and to connect ourselves to everyone else and share that simcha. I want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Wish everybody a safe and pleasant Shabbat and all the best.